The billionaire groom stands at the altar, ready to say "I do," until his eyes land on his ex in the back row, pregnant, glowing, hand on her belly. In that single frozen second, his perfect wedding shatters, and the truth he buried for years comes crashing back. The officiant says, "You may kiss the bride." The crowd erupts. Confetti rains. Blake Weston, the billionaire who turned clean energy into billions, who flies helicopters like taxis, who never loses, does not move. His lips stay frozen. His hands tremble at his sides. His heart slams so hard it feels like it might crack ribs. Because 20 rows back, standing alone in a sea of strangers, is Elowen Voss. The woman he loved until he chose money over her. The woman he ghosted after one too many broken promises. The woman he dragged here today, by secretly bailing out her dying Brooklyn bookstore, then twisting the favor into a non-negotiable invitation. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't hide. She places one protective hand over the full, round swell beneath her dress. Pregnant. Heavily pregnant. Glowing with life, he had no part in creating. The kiss never happens. The perfect Hamptons wedding he scripted as a hostile takeover detonates in real time. His stomach drops through the floor. Acid burns his throat. 1,000 buried memories explode at once, her laugh echoing between bookstore shelves, her fingers tracing his jaw under string lights, the way she whispered we could have everything while curled against him on that tiny rooftop. Now she carries someone else's child. Now she stands in the crowd he forced her into. Now the man who has everything realizes he threw away the only thing that ever mattered. Jealousy claws his chest open. Regret drowns him. And one question screams louder than the applause. How did the woman he discarded build a whole new life, complete with the family they once dreamed of, while he stands here wearing a ring that suddenly feels like handcuffs? This single second of eye contact destroys him. And the story of how it all fell apart is about to begin. Welcome, everyone, to Lord of Hearts, the place where real stories meet real lessons, where heartbreak turns into growth, and where every ending hides the seed of something better. If you're new here, thank you for clicking play today. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. Your support means the world and keeps these stories alive. Now take a slow breath with me, because what you just witnessed in that frozen wedding moment isn't fiction. It's the kind of truth that happens in real life more often than we admit. Have you ever looked back at someone you let go and wondered, what if I had fought harder? What if I had chosen them over everything else? Have you ever felt the sharp sting of realizing too late that success, money, status, none of it fills the hole left by the one person who truly saw you? Maybe you're the one who walked away. Maybe you're the one who was left behind. Maybe you're still carrying the weight of a choice you can't undo, a missed call, a cancelled plan, a door you closed when you should have kept it open. That ache you feel right now? That quiet voice asking, did I ruin the best thing I ever had? Blake Weston felt it too, standing at that altar, watching the woman he manipulated back into his life show up with a future he had no claim to. This story isn't just about a billionaire's mistake. It's about every time we trade love for ambition. Every time we force control instead of letting go. Every time we learn the hardest way that some things can't be bought back. Stick with me. Because what happens after that single devastating glance will show you exactly how deep regret can cut, and how powerful real change can be when we finally face it. That's the brutal truth Blake Weston couldn't escape. He thought he could control love the same way he controlled markets. He thought one clever move, a secret donation, a conditional invitation, would give him the closure he craved without any real cost. He thought forcing Elowen back into his orbit would prove he'd won, that he'd moved on. Instead, it proved the opposite. He proved that when you manipulate someone's heart to ease your own guilt, you don't get redemption, you get a mirror held up to every selfish choice you ever made. You get the sight of the woman you loved building a life, a family, a future, while you stand in a tuxedo pretending everything is fine. That's the real tragedy here. Not the money. Not the empire. The tragedy is what happens when we let pride and power convince us that we can bend people like contracts. When we trade presence for provision. When we choose control over courage. When we learn, too late, that the deepest wounds aren't from breakups, they're from the things we did to avoid feeling the pain of letting go properly. But here's what makes this story different. Blake doesn't stay broken. Elowen doesn't stay silent. And what unfolds after that single, devastating glance at the wedding isn't revenge or reunion. It's something far rarer, raw, uncomfortable, beautiful truth. Truth about regret that can still teach us. Truth about love that can still evolve. Truth about the kind of change that actually heals instead of just numbing the hurt. If you've ever felt the weight of a choice you wish you could take back. If you want to see how one man's biggest mistake became his greatest lesson, stay right here. Before we step into the full story, do this for me, hit that like button if this already hits close to home. Drop a comment below with your biggest what-if regret, no judgment here, we've all got them. And subscribe to Lord of Hearts so you never miss a story that reminds you, your heart is worth protecting, and it's never too late to choose better. Let's go find out what really happened after that wedding froze in time. The city never sleeps, and neither does Blake Weston. From the 78th floor terrace of his Upper East Side residence, Manhattan spreads out like a living circuit board, lights pulsing in endless rhythm, taxis crawling like blood cells through arteries of concrete and steel. Helicopters chop the air overhead, ferrying people who think they own time. Blake owns 3 of those choppers himself. He owns the building beneath his feet. He owns companies that power half the eastern seaboard with clean energy nobody else could scale. Tonight he stands alone in a black cashmere sweater and tailored trousers, glass of single malt untouched in his hand, staring at the skyline he helped light up. The wind carries the faint salt of the Hudson and the distant horn of a ferry. None of it reaches him. Success should feel like victory. Instead it feels like standing in an empty stadium after the crowd has gone home. In less than 72 hours he will marry Vivian Hale. Vivian is everything the world expects a man like Blake to choose: sharp mind, impeccable lineage, flawless in photo shoots and charity galas. Their engagement announcement made headlines in 3 languages. The wedding planner calls it the merger of the decade. Blake doesn't argue. He helped write the guest list like a board of directors. Every seat filled with influence, every toast scripted for maximum return. It's practical, strategic, clean. Exactly the kind of arrangement that once made him feel invincible. So why does the ring on his finger already feel heavier than the contracts that built his fortune? He sets the glass down on the glass railing, clink too loud in the quiet, and exhales. The breath fogs briefly before vanishing into the night. For a moment the city blurs, and another face sharpens in his mind. Elowen. Not the polished memory he keeps locked away for board meetings and quiet flights. The real one, hair falling loose over one shoulder as she laughed behind the counter of her bookstore, eyes bright with something money could never buy. The way she used to tilt her head when she listened, really listened, like every word he said mattered more than the next quarterly report. He hasn't spoken her name out loud in 3 years. Hasn't let himself picture her in months. Yet here she is again, slipping past every defense he built, occupying space he swore was filled. He knows she'll be at the wedding. He made sure of it. A 7-figure donation wired through 3 shell accounts to keep her little Brooklyn shop afloat, then a single line added to the terms by a discreet intermediary, attendance required. Nothing overt. Nothing traceable. Just enough pressure disguised as generosity to pull her back into his orbit for one afternoon. He told himself it was closure. A final look to prove he had moved on. A way to silence the voice that still whispered her name when the penthouse felt too large. Now, 48 hours from vows he isn't sure he believes, the plan feels less like strategy and more like desperation. Because what if she walks through those white roses and he still can't breathe? What if she looks at him the way she used to, soft, unguarded, and he remembers exactly why he let pride win over everything else? What if she doesn't look at him at all? The terrace suddenly feels colder. He crosses his arms, trying to trap the warmth inside his chest, but it leaks out anyway. Wealth buys distance. It buys silence. It buys the illusion that you never have to feel anything you don't choose to feel. But it can't buy back the nights he cancelled because a deal was closing in Singapore. It can't buy back the anniversary dinner he missed because a prototype failed in Nevada. It can't buy back the last time Elowen stood in the aisle of her shop, tears shining, voice steady, saying, "I love you, but I won't beg for the parts of you that are left." He walked away that night. Told himself it was mercy. Told himself she deserved better than half a life. Now he stands on top of the world with everything except the one thing he actually wanted. Isolation isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It creeps in during the quiet moments, when the helicopter blades stop, when the boardroom empties, when the woman beside you in bed is polite instead of passionate. Blake glances at his phone. A text from Vivian glows on the screen, "Final fitting tomorrow. Can't wait to see you in the tux." He stares at the heart emoji until it blurs. Then he looks back at the city. Somewhere out there, in a narrow Brooklyn street lined with brick and fairy lights, Elowen is probably closing up pages and whispers. Maybe she's stacking returns, maybe she's brewing coffee for tomorrow's first customers, maybe she's sitting on that worn velvet couch in the back room with a book open on her lap, the same couch where he once read poetry aloud just to hear her sigh against his shoulder. He wonders if she still keeps that couch. He wonders if she still thinks about him at all. He wonders why the thought of her not thinking about him hurts worse than the thought of her hating him. The terrace wind picks up. His hair lifts. He doesn't move to smooth it down. Success is supposed to be armor. Instead it feels like a cage he locked himself inside. And in 48 hours he will stand in front of 500 people and promise forever to a woman who fits perfectly into his empire, while the only woman who ever fit perfectly into his heart will be watching from the back row. He forced her there. He forced this moment. Now the question isn't whether he can go through with the wedding. The question is whether he can live with himself if he does. What would you do? If you built everything you ever wanted, and then realized none of it felt like enough without the one person you pushed away, what would you do? Would you walk down that aisle anyway? Would you call the whole thing off? Or would you stand frozen, hoping the past stays buried long enough for the future to feel real? Blake doesn't know yet. But the clock is ticking. And the woman he can't forget is already on her way. Chapter 2, How It All Began, The Rainy Day Meeting. 5 years earlier. Rain hammers Manhattan like it has a personal grudge. Blake Weston ducks under the first awning he sees, collar up, briefcase shielding his head. Water streams off the brim of his hat in sheets. He's late for a dinner with investors, again, but the storm has turned every street into a river and every cab into a ghost. He pushes open the nearest door without looking at the sign. A small bell chimes once, soft and surprised. Warmth hits him first. Then the smell, old paper, fresh ground coffee, faint vanilla from candles someone left burning too long. The noise of the city drops away like someone turned down the volume on the world. He stands in the entrance, dripping onto the worn hardwood floor, blinking against the golden light. Shelves rise floor to ceiling, books leaning into each other like old friends sharing secrets. String lights drape lazily across the rafters. A velvet couch sits in the far corner beside a mismatched armchair and a low table stacked with bookmarks and half-read novels. Behind the counter, a woman looks up from a ledger. She's not startled. She's curious. Hair the color of dark honey pulled into a loose knot, sleeves rolled to her elbows, a pencil tucked behind one ear. Her eyes, green flecked with gold, meet his without flinching. "Rough night out there?" she asks, voice low and warm, like she's already decided his welcome. Blake opens his mouth to say something sharp about the weather, then stops. He's not used to being looked at like a person instead of a paycheck. "Something like that," he manages. She nods toward the back. "Coffee's fresh. Help yourself. Towels on the hook if you want to dry off." He hesitates. Then he crosses the room, footsteps muffled by scattered rugs. The coffee pot is old school, glass bulb stained brown from years of use. He pours a mug, wraps his hands around it, lets the heat seep into his palms. When he turns back, she's watching him, not staring, just observing. "You're not from around here," she says. Not a question. "Born and raised Upper East Side." She smiles, small and knowing. "That's what I mean." He almost laughs. Almost. Instead he glances at the shelves. "You own this place." Elowen Voss. Pages and whispers. 6 years next month. Blake. He doesn't add the last name. Doesn't need to. She doesn't ask. She closes the ledger, rests her chin on her hand. "What kind of book are you looking for on a night like this?" "I'm not looking for a book. I'm looking for dry land." "Fair enough. But you're in a bookstore now. Might as well browse." Something in her tone, light, teasing, zero pressure, makes him set the mug down and wander the aisles. He pulls a worn copy of a poetry collection at random. Opens it. Reads a line aloud without thinking. She answers from behind the counter, finishing the stanza from memory. He looks over. She shrugs. "I read it to customers sometimes. Helps them decide." They talk. Not small talk. Real talk. About why certain lines make your chest ache, why endings matter more than beginnings, why some stories feel like they were written just for you. Hours pass. The rain never stops. Neither does the conversation. When the clock finally nudges past 10, she flips the sign to closed but doesn't ask him to leave. "Sit," she says, nodding at the couch. Storm's not letting up. Might as well be comfortable. He sits. She brings 2 fresh mugs and settles on the opposite end, legs tucked under her. They keep talking. About forgotten authors who deserved better. About the way a good sentence can stop time. About dreams that feel too big until you say them out loud. At some point, she leans back, eyes half closed, listening to him read a poem about lost chances. Her breathing slows. Her head tips toward his shoulder. He stops reading. She doesn't move away. Neither does he. That's how it starts. Not with fireworks. Not with grand gestures. With rain. A couch. A book. And two people who suddenly don't want the night to end. The chance visits begin next week. He tells himself he's in the neighborhood for a meeting. He tells himself he just needs a quiet place to think. But every time the bell chimes, Elowen looks up and smiles like she knew he was coming. He starts bringing coffee from the place down the block, black for her, oat milk latte for him. She starts saving him the armchair by the window. They talk more. They laugh more. One evening, she locks the door early, dims the lights, and pulls a poetry collection from the top shelf. "Read to me," she says. He does. Her head finds his shoulder again. This time it stays. His arm slides around her. She sighs, a small, contented sound that lodges somewhere deep in his chest. Soft kisses follow. Not rushed. Not hungry. Just gentle, like testing the shape of something fragile and new. Her lips taste like chamomile and ink. His fingers thread through her hair. They don't speak after. They just sit, wrapped in each other, listening to the city hum beyond the windows. Weeks turn into months. Chance becomes deliberate. He starts showing up after closing just to help her stack returns. She starts texting him lines from books she knows he'll love. One night, after everyone else has gone, she leads him up the narrow stairs behind the counter to the tiny rooftop apartment she keeps above the shop. City lights glitter below like scattered stars. They sit on an old blanket, backs against the brick wall, sharing a bottle of cheap red wine. She rests her head on his chest. He wraps both arms around her. They talk about dreams. She wants the shop to become a real community space, story hours for kids, author nights, quiet corners for people who need somewhere safe to breathe. He doesn't know yet. But when he's with her, the wanting feels less like hunger and more like peace. She teaches him things he never learned in boardrooms. That real wealth isn't measured in zeros. It's measured in presence. In showing up. In staying when it would be easier to leave. "You don't have to earn love," she whispers one night, fingers tracing slow circles on his wrist. "You just have to let it in." He kisses her temple. Holds her tighter. For the first time in years, he sleeps without checking his phone every hour. He wakes to her breathing soft against his neck, sunlight filtering through the skylight, books stacked haphazardly around them like silent guardians. He thinks, this is what I've been missing. But ambition is a jealous thing. It waits. It watches. And it never stays quiet for long. The empire is growing faster than he can keep up with. Meetings multiply. Flights double. Deadlines tighten like nooses. He starts canceling. First dinner. Then two. Then the promises get smaller. "I'll make it up to you. I'll be there next time." She leaves notes in the books he carries home, small slips of paper tucked between pages. "You are enough exactly as you are. Come home soon." He reads them on private jets, heart twisting, then folds them away. The rooftop nights grow fewer. The couch evenings are shorter. The kisses are still soft, but now they carry the faint taste of goodbye. Elowen never begs. She never raises her voice. She just watches him slip further into the life he says he needs. And one rainy evening, 5 years and a lifetime ago, she stands in the quiet aisle between fiction and poetry, arms folded, eyes steady. "I love you," she says. "But I won't wait forever for the man I fell for to come back." He stands there, rain dripping from his coat onto the floorboards, briefcase still in hand. He could drop it. He could pull her close. He could choose. Instead, he nods once. Turns. Walks out. The bell chimes behind him like a door closing forever. And just like that, the best thing that ever happened to him becomes the thing he let go. But the story doesn't end there. Because 5 years later, on a perfect Hamptons lawn, she'll walk back into his life. Pregnant. Glowing. And carrying everything he once dreamed of giving her, except now it belongs to someone else's future. Or does it? The first crack appears quietly. A single cancelled dinner. Blake texts her at 6:47 p.m. Board meeting ran long. Rain check for tomorrow? Elowen replies within minutes, "Of course. Go crush it. I'll keep the shop open late if you finish early." He doesn't finish early. The next week it happens twice. Then 3 times in a row. Weston Renewables is no longer a promising startup. It's a force. Investors pour in money faster than he can spend it. A breakthrough in battery storage sends the valuation soaring. Headlines call him the green energy king. Invitations flood his inbox. Davos, TED, private dinners with senators. Every yes he gives pulls him further from Brooklyn. Elowen feels the shift before he admits it. She starts leaving small anchors in the books he borrows, folded notes slipped between pages like bookmarks only he will find. One reads, "You're allowed to rest. The world won't collapse if you take a night off." Another, "Missed your voice tonight. Call when you can breathe." A third, written in her careful cursive, "I'm proud of you. Just don't forget who you were before the spotlight found you." He reads them on red-eye flights, thumb tracing the ink, chest tightening. He keeps every single one. Tucks them into the inner pocket of his briefcase like talismans. But talismans don't stop time. They don't stop calendars from filling. They don't stop the distance from growing. One Friday, he promises to meet her at 8 p.m. for the shop's first official author reading. He arrives at 10:42. The chairs are already stacked. The guest author has left. Elowen is alone, sweeping the floor under dimmed lights. She doesn't look angry. She looks tired. He steps inside, rain-soaked coat dripping. "I'm sorry. The call with Tokyo." "I know," she cuts in gently. "You texted." He crosses the room and reaches for her hand. She lets him take it, but her fingers stay loose. "I'll make it up to you," he says. He searches his face. "You always say that." The words land more heavily than any argument could. He pulls her close anyway. She rests her forehead against his chest for a long moment. Then she steps back. "I need more than promises, Blake." He nods. Swallows. Promises himself he'll do better. For a while, he tries. He carves out one full weekend. No phone, no laptop. They spend it entirely in her tiny rooftop apartment above the shop. Saturday morning, coffee in bed, sunlight slanting across tangled sheets, her laughter when he burns toast. Saturday afternoon, walking hand in hand through Prospect Park, stopping to watch kids chase pigeons, her head on his shoulder while they sit on a bench and share silence. Saturday night, slow dancing to an old vinyl record in the narrow living room, her bare feet on his arms tight around her waist, whispering nonsense into her hair. Sunday, lazy hours on the couch downstairs after closing, her reading aloud from a novel while he traces lazy patterns on her arm. He thinks, this is it. This is enough. But Monday morning, his phone buzzes at 5:12 a.m. A prototype failed in the Nevada test facility. The board wants him on a plane by noon. He kisses her sleeping forehead, leaves a note on the pillow, "Emergency in Nevada. Back on Wednesday. Love you." Wednesday stretches into Friday. Friday into the following Tuesday. When he finally returns, she's waiting behind the counter with a small, sad smile. "You didn't call," she says. "I was in back-to-back sessions." "I know." She hands him a book. Inside, no note this time. Just the title page circled in pencil, "The Remains of the Day." He gets the message. The distance isn't measured in miles anymore. It's measured in silences. In texts answered hours later. In kisses that start soft and end hurriedly. In the way her eyes dim when he checks his watch mid-sentence. One evening, he shows up after midnight. The shop is dark. He knocks anyway. She opens the door in pajamas, hair mussed from sleep. "I couldn't wait until morning," he says. She lets him in. They sit on the velvet couch. He pulls her into his lap. She curls against him, but there's a stiffness now. "I miss you," he whispers. "I miss us," she answers. The words hang between them. He kisses her, slow at first, then deeper, desperate, trying to pour everything he can't say into the press of his mouth. She kisses back. But when they break apart, her eyes are wet. "I can't keep doing this," she says. "Doing what?" "Waiting for scraps. Pretending it's enough." He frames her face. "I'm trying. You're succeeding at everything except us." The truth lands like a slap. He wants to argue. Wants to promise change. Wants to fix it with words, money, or anything that has always worked before. But she's already standing. Rain begins tapping the windows again, soft at first, then harder. She walks to the fiction aisle. Stops. Turns. "I love you, Blake." Her voice cracks on his name. "More than I've ever loved anyone. But I won't beg for the parts of you that are left after the world takes the rest." Tears spill down her cheeks. She doesn't wipe them away. He stands frozen. Pride rises like bile in his throat. He could cross the room. He could hold her. He could say the words that would keep her. Instead, he hears himself say, "Maybe you're right. Maybe you deserve someone who can give you all of himself." The sentence tastes like ash. Her face crumples for one heartbeat, then hardens into quiet resolve. She nods once. Goodbye, Blake. He turns. Walks to the door. The bell chimes as he leaves. Rain soaks him instantly. He stands on the sidewalk, briefcase dangling uselessly at his side, staring at the warm glow still leaking from the shop windows. Inside, she's alone again. Sweeping the same floor. Crying silently. He could go back. He could apologize. He could choose her. But pride is louder than regret in that moment. He walks away. Head down. Heart in pieces. And the man who commands billions lets the best thing he ever held slip through his fingers because he couldn't bear to look weak. Regret doesn't hit all at once. It arrives in waves. Late nights in hotel suites when the champagne tastes flat. Quiet flights when the person beside him is a stranger. Board meetings when applause feels hollow. Every time he opens his briefcase and sees those folded notes, fading ink, her handwriting, he feels the ache fresh. He tells himself she's better off. He tells himself he's better off. He tells himself lies until they almost feel true. But deep down, he knows. He knows he traded love for control. Presence for power. She's for everything else. And now, 5 years later, the bill is coming due. Because the woman he walked away from is about to walk back into his life. Not as the girl who waited, but as someone who built a future without him. Pregnant. Independent. And standing in the back row of the wedding, he forced her to attend. The confrontation is coming. The truth is coming. And the man who once thought he could have it all is about to discover just how much he lost. If this part is hitting home, if you've ever watched a relationship slip away because life got too loud, too busy, too important, smash that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that love doesn't wait forever. Drop a comment below, what would you have done differently in Blake's place? And subscribe to Lord of Hearts so you don't miss the redemption that's waiting just ahead. Because this story isn't over. Not even close. Time doesn't heal. It buries. Blake Weston throws himself into Weston Renewables like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. Acquisitions. Expansions. New patents are filed monthly. The valuation climbs past 10 billion. Forbes puts him on the cover twice in 18 months. Every headline is armor. Every late-night negotiation is a distraction. Every private jet landing in another city is proof he's fine. He dates occasionally, beautiful, accomplished women who understand schedules and spotlights. None last longer than 6 months. They're polite, predictable, safe. Then comes Vivian Hale. She's introduced at a climate summit in Geneva. Tall, poised, heir to an old shipping fortune, fluent in 4 languages and comfortable in rooms full of power. Their first conversation is effortless. No emotional landmines. No demands for presence. Just mutual respect for ambition and a shared understanding that relationships can be alliances. They see each other when calendars align. Paris for a weekend. Aspen for New Year's. A quiet dinner in Manhattan when both are in town. She never asks why he checks his phone during dessert. She never leaves notes in books. She never makes him feel like he's failing at being human. 18 months after their first meeting, Blake proposes on a yacht off the Amalfi Coast. Sunset. Champagne. A diamond that costs more than most people's homes. Vivian accepts with a calm smile. It makes sense, she says. He nods. It does make sense. The wedding is planned with military precision. Hamptons estate, 500 guests, security detail, media blackout except for approved outlets. It's perfect on paper. But perfection has a way of feeling thin when you're alone at 3 a.m. One Tuesday evening, 3 months before the date, Blake's assistant slides a printed article across his desk. Thought you might want to see this. Brooklyn bookstore on the brink. Pages and whispers faces closure after rent hike. The photo shows Elowen standing in front of the shop's faded sign, arms crossed, chin lifted in quiet defiance. She looks older. Stronger. Still beautiful in a way that stops his breath. He reads the piece twice. Rising rents. Declining foot traffic. A community fighting to save it, but money talks louder than petitions. He stares at the screen until the letters blur. Then he closes the laptop. Walks to the window. Watches the city move below like it owes him nothing. That night he can't sleep. Memories surface without permission, her laugh echoing in the narrow aisles, the way she'd fall asleep against him with an open book on her chest, the last tear that slid down her cheek before she said goodbye. He tells himself it's nostalgia. He tells himself she's moved on. He tells himself this has nothing to do with the wedding. But the next morning he makes a call. Not to her. To a private wealth manager who specializes in untraceable transfers. 7 figures, Blake says. Anonymous. To pages and whispers in Brooklyn. Make it look like a community grant. The manager pauses. Any conditions? Blake hesitates for half a heartbeat. Then, attendance at my wedding. Hamptons. 3 months from now. Invitation to follow through normal channels. She doesn't need to know the source. Silence on the line. Then, understood. The money moves that afternoon. 2 weeks later the article updates. Local bookstore saved by mysterious donor. Elowen posts a simple thank you on the shop's Instagram. We're staying open. Thank you to whoever you are. You gave us time. We'll make it count. Blake reads the post on his phone in the back of a town car. His thumb hovers over the heart icon. He doesn't press it. Instead he stares at her photo, smiling, tired, victorious, and feels something crack open inside his chest. Regret? Hope? Fear? He can't name it. He only knows he needs to see her one more time. Not to win her back. Not to explain. Just to prove, to himself, that the chapter is closed. That he can look at her without falling apart. That the ring on his finger means something. The invitation arrives at the bookstore the following week. Heavy cream card. Gold lettering. Elowen opens it behind the counter while the morning coffee brews. She reads the names. Blake Weston and Vivian Hale. Request the pleasure of your company. Her fingers tighten on the paper. She knows. Not the exact mechanics, but the shape of it. The donation. The timing. The condition whispered through back channels. Anger flares first, hot and bright. He didn't just save the shop. He bought her presents. She almost tears the card in half. Then she stops. Looks around at the shelves she fought to keep. The customers who've become friends. The life she rebuilt brick by brick after he walked out. Curiosity creeps in next. Not love. Not longing. Simple human wonder, who is he now? Has success filled the space she used to occupy? Does he still keep her notes in his briefcase? Or has he become the version of himself he always feared, polished, distant, untouchable? She sets the invitation on the counter. Walks to the back room. Sits on the velvet couch where they used to read together. Closes her eyes. Feels the faint kick of life beneath her hand. The baby isn't his. The future isn't his. But the past still has teeth. She decides to go. Not for him. For herself. To close the book properly. To look him in the eye and show him she survived. Thrived. Grew roots he never expected. And maybe, just maybe, to see if the man she loved is still in there somewhere beneath the billions. Across the city, Blake paces his terrace. The wedding is 10 days away. He hasn't told Vivian about the invitation. Hasn't told anyone. Every night, he replays the same questions. What if she doesn't come? What if she does, and she's happy? What if she's moved on so completely that his face means nothing to her now? The thought twists like a knife. He wants closure. He wants proof he made the right choice. He wants to stop feeling like half a man. But deep down, in the quiet part he never admits to, he knows the truth. This isn't about closure. This is about unfinished business. About a love he never properly buried. About a woman who still has the power to undo him with one look. And in 10 days, on a manicured lawn under perfect skies, that look is coming. Whether he's ready or not. The clock is ticking louder now. The past is closing in. And the billionaire who thought he could control everything is about to discover just how little control he really has. The Hamptons sun hangs high and merciless, turning the estate lawn into a sheet of pale gold. White roses climb trellises taller than men. A string quartet plays Vivaldi with practiced elegance. 500 guests in linen and silk murmur approval as the bride walks the petal-strewn aisle. Vivian Hale moves like someone who has never doubted her place in the world. Her gown catches light and throws it back in soft prisms. She smiles at Blake with calm certainty. He stands at the altar in midnight black tuxedo, shoulders square, jaw set. From this distance, he looks every inch the man who conquered an industry. Inside, his pulse hammers like a trapped bird. The officiant begins. Words about love, commitment, and forever. Blake repeats them on cue. His voice stays steady. But his eyes keep drifting, searching the rows of chairs, the shaded edges, the faces he invited for optics. And then he sees her. Elowen Voss sits in the very last row, near the edge where the lawn meets wild grass. She wears a simple sage green dress that flows over her like water. Her hair is loose, catching the breeze. Her posture is straight, composed, but not stiff. Her right hand rests lightly on the gentle, unmistakable curve of her belly. The world narrows to a pinprick. Blake's breath catches hard enough to hurt. Pregnant. Not a little. Visibly, heavily pregnant. The officiant asks for the rings. Blake's fingers fumble the platinum band. It slips once before he slides it onto Vivian's finger. He hears the applause rise around him like distant surf. But all he hears clearly is the blood rushing in his ears. Vows finish. A kiss is exchanged, brief, correct. Vivian's lips are cool and familiar. He barely feels them. The quartet strikes up again. Guests stand, cheering, throwing rose petals. Blake walks down the aisle beside his new wife, nodding, smiling on autopilot. His gaze keeps snapping back to that last row. Elowen hasn't moved. She watches him steadily. No smile. No frown. Just a calm, quiet presence. The reception unfolds under a vast white tent. Champagne flows. Toasts are made. Laughter ripples across tables. Blake moves through it like a man underwater. He shakes hands, accepts congratulations, and poses for photos. Every few minutes, he scans the crowd. She's still there, standing near the garden path now, half hidden by climbing hydrangeas. He excuses himself from a cluster of investors. Walks straight toward her. The path is lined with blooming roses. The scent hits him hard, sweet, heavy, the same flowers he used to bring her on quiet evenings. She doesn't turn away as he approaches. Elowen. His voice cracks on the second syllable. She meets his eyes. Blake. A small pause. Congratulations, she says. The ceremony was beautiful. He swallows. Can we talk? She nods once. They step onto the garden path, away from the tent, away from the music, away from the eyes. Roses brush their arms. Gravel crunches underfoot. They stop beneath an arbor heavy with white blooms. Silence stretches for 3 heartbeats. Then Blake speaks first. The baby. His voice is rough, almost broken. Elowen places both hands on her belly, protective, instinctive. She looks at him for a long moment. After you left, she says quietly, I gave myself time. Traveled a little. Focused on the shop. Met people. One of them was a writer, gentle, kind, loved stories the way I do. We were together for almost 2 years. It felt real while it lasted. But it ended cleanly. No anger. No big fight. Just 2 people who realized they wanted different chapters. She pauses. This little one arrived after that. I'm raising her alone. And I'm happy about it. Truly happy. Blake feels the words land like stones in deep water. Ripples spread through his chest. Jealousy flares first, sharp, hot, irrational. Then sorrow, deep, aching, for the family they once talked about building on that rooftop. Then something softer. Tenderness. Pride in her strength. A strange, reluctant joy that she found her way forward. He looks down at the gravel. I forced you here, he admits. The donation. The condition. I told myself it was closure. I told myself I just needed to see you one last time to prove I'd moved on. Elowen tilts her head. Did it work? He laughs once, short, bitter. No. It made everything worse. She studies him. You look tired, Blake. I am. Another silence. Then he speaks again, voice lower. I remember the nights in the back room. You'd fall asleep with your head on my chest while I read. I'd keep reading even after your breathing evened out, just to feel you there. The way the string lights made shadows across your face. The way you'd wake up and smile like the whole world was new again. Her expression softens, just a fraction. I remember mornings, she says. Sunlight coming through the skylight. Coffee smell mixes with old books. You'd pull me closer and whisper that we had all the time in the world. We didn't. No, we didn't. He steps half a step closer. I should have stayed. That last night in the shop, I should have dropped the briefcase and held you. I should have chosen you over pride. Over everything. Tears gather in her eyes now. She blinks them back. You made your choice, she says gently. And I made mine. I built something solid after you left. The shop is stronger. The community is stronger. And this baby, she rests her palm flat against the swell, she's already teaching me how to love without waiting for someone else to show up. Blake nods slowly. I'm glad you're happy. I am. He exhales. I'm not. The admission hangs between them. I thought success would fill the space you left. It didn't. It just made the silence louder. She watches him with quiet compassion. "You can still change that," she says. He looks at her, really looks. The woman who once loved him enough to let him go. The woman is carrying a new life. The woman who came today not to hurt him, but to stand in her truth. Something inside him cracks wide open. Not anger. Not despair. Clarity. "I don't want to force anything anymore," he says. "I don't want to manipulate or control or pretend. I'm sorry. For all of it. For walking away. For dragging you here. For thinking I could tie up loose ends with money and an invitation." Elowen reaches out, slowly, and touches his sleeve. Just a light press of fingers. "Thank you," she whispers. "For saying it." He covers her hand with his. Holds it there for one heartbeat. Two. Then let's go. They stand in the rose-scented air. The distant music drifts over like a memory. She speaks first. "I'm going to head back soon. The baby's been active all day, she's ready for a nap." He nods. "Take care of yourself. Both of you." "I will." She turns to leave. Then pauses. Looks back. "You were my favorite chapter once," she says softly. "Even if it ended too soon." Blake's throat closes. He watches her walk down the path, slow, steady, one hand resting on her belly. She doesn't look back again. He stands there until she disappears around the bend. The quartet plays on. Laughter floats from the tent. But the man at the center of the celebration feels the ground shift beneath him. Everything he built, every deal, every headline, every careful choice, suddenly feels weightless. And everything he lost suddenly feels heavier than the empire he commands. The turning point isn't the wedding. It's this moment. The moment he finally sees what he threw away. And the moment he realizes he still has time to become a man worthy of the love he once held, and lost. But time is never guaranteed. And the path forward is anything but clear. The reception continues without him. Laughter spills from the tent. Glasses clink. Toasts rise like fireworks. Blake stands alone on the garden path long after Elowen disappears around the bend. Roses fade in the late afternoon light. The string quartet switches to something slower, more wistful. He walks back slowly. Nods at guests who call his name. Smiles when cameras flash. But inside, the wedding he planned so carefully has already ended. Not in divorce papers. Not in shouting matches. In quiet realization. That night, in the honeymoon suite overlooking the ocean, Vivian finds him on the balcony. She's still in her gown, hair half-pinned, makeup flawless except for the faint smudge under one eye. She doesn't ask where he went during the reception. She already knows. Instead, she says, "This isn't what either of us wanted, is it?" He turns. Meets her gaze. "No." She exhales. "I thought practicality would be enough. I was wrong." They talk for hours. No accusations. No blame. Just honesty. By dawn, they agree, the marriage ends before it truly begins. An annulment was filed quietly. A joint statement to the press. Mutual respect, separate paths. The world calls it amicable. They call it necessary. Blake moves out of the shared penthouse within the week. Takes only what fits in 2 suitcases. Leaves the rest behind. For the first time in years, he sleeps without a schedule dictating his wake-up time. The silence is deafening at first. Then it becomes space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to remember who he was before the empire swallowed him. He starts small. A single cancelled meeting. Then 2. Then a whole week was blocked off with no explanation. He reaches out to Elowen on the 3rd Tuesday after the wedding. A simple text, "I owe you more than an apology in a rose garden. If you're ever willing to hear it properly, I'd like to say it in person." No pressure. No expectations. Just the truth. He hits send before he can overthink it. The reply comes 3 days later. Coffee at the shop. Next Saturday 10 a.m. Bring nothing but honesty. He arrives early. The bell chimes softly. Elowen is behind the counter, apron dusted with flour from the morning bake. The shop smells like cinnamon and fresh ink. She looks up. Nods once. They sit at the small table near the window, the same table where he once read her poetry until closing time. He speaks first. "I'm sorry," he says. "Not just for the donation or the invitation. For all of it. For choosing work over you every time it mattered. For letting pride win when love was asking me to lose. For walking out that rainy night and convincing myself it was noble instead of cowardly." She listens without interrupting. When he finishes, she speaks quietly. I needed to hear that. Thank you. A pause. I'm not angry anymore, she adds. I was, for a long time. But anger takes too much energy. I chose to use mine building something instead. She gestures around the shop. The shelves are fuller now. A children's corner with beanbags and picture books. A bulletin board covered in flyers for local author readings, poetry nights, and story hours. It's a community hub, she says. Kids come after school. Parents bring coffee and stay to talk. We're not just selling books anymore. We're holding space. He smiles, small, genuine. I'm proud of you. She meets his eyes. What about you? He exhales. I'm trying to unlearn everything I thought success required. I've started mentoring young founders, not on how to scale faster, but on how to protect what actually matters. I tell them the story of the man who had everything and still felt empty. Most of them listen. She nods slowly. They talk for 2 hours. No romance. No promises. Just two people who once loved each other, now learning how to exist in the same room without pain. It becomes a pattern. Coffee every few weeks. Sometimes at the shop. Sometimes, a walk in Prospect Park. When her daughter arrives, early, healthy, with a shock of dark hair and Elowen's green-gold eyes, Blake sends flowers. No card asking for anything. Just, she's beautiful. Congratulations to both of you. Elowen texts back a photo of the newborn wrapped in a soft blanket. Thank you. Her name is Rowan. He stares at the picture until his vision blurs. Not with jealousy. Not with regret. With quiet awe. Months pass. One crisp October afternoon, they meet on a bench overlooking the East River. Rowan is 6 months old now, bundled in a carrier against Elowen's chest. She's awake, tiny fists waving, eyes wide at the water and the skyline. Blake sits beside them. The city hums below. Ferries glide past. Leaves drift in lazy spirals. Elowen adjusts the blanket. She likes the river, she says. The sound calms her. Blake watches the baby watch the world. I used to dream about this, he admits. Not the money. Not the headlines. Just, mornings like this. Someone to share quiet with. Elowen looks at him. You can still be quiet. Just not the version you pictured. He nods. I know. They sit in companionable silence. Rowan gurgles, reaches for Blake's finger. He lets her wrap her small hand around it. The moment stretches, simple, perfect, unforced. Elowen speaks softly. We rewrote the chapter. Not the way we thought. But it's still a good story. Blake looks at the water. It is. He turns to her. Thank you for letting me be part of the epilogue. Even just as a friend. She smiles, warm, unguarded. You're welcome in the epilogue, Blake. As long as you keep showing up as the man you're becoming. He squeezes Rowan's tiny hand gently. I will. The sun dips lower. The city lights begin to flicker on. They don't need grand declarations. They don't need to rewrite the past. They've learned what love can become when it's allowed to evolve instead of being forced to stay the same. Friendship. Respect. Quiet support. Wisdom earned through loss. Blake eventually kisses the top of Rowan's head, light, careful. See you next month? He asks. Elowen nods. Bring coffee. Rowan likes the smell. He laughs, real, unguarded. As he walks away, the skyline glowing behind him, he feels lighter than he has in years. Not because everything is fixed. Not because he got the girl back. Because he finally chose something more valuable than winning, growth. Presence. The courage to show up without an agenda. And somewhere in Brooklyn, on a velvet couch surrounded by stories, a mother rocks her daughter and smiles at the memory of a man who once broke her heart, and then helped her understand that broken hearts can mend stronger than before. Their tale ends not with fireworks or a fairy tale reunion. It ends with two people who loved deeply, lost painfully, and chose kindness in the aftermath. It ends with lessons carried forward. Presence matters more than provision. Ambition needs balance, or it consumes everything worth having. Manipulation always backfires. A real connection respects free will. Heartbreak can forge purpose if you let it. Love doesn't have to end in romance. It can end in wisdom, friendship, and grace. In New York's endless river of stories, this one floats quietly onward. A reminder that every ending plants seeds for something new. And sometimes the greatest fortune isn't billions in the bank. It's the people who still choose to sit beside you, even after everything. Even after goodbye. We've walked through every heartbeat of this story together. From a rain-soaked afternoon when two strangers found each other in a quiet Brooklyn bookstore, to rooftop nights filled with whispered dreams and soft touches, to the slow, aching drift that ambition created, to the rainy goodbye that felt final, to years of buried pain and polished success, to a desperate, hidden move that pulled the past back into the present, to that frozen moment on a Hamptons lawn when a billionaire groom saw the woman he once loved standing in the back row, pregnant, radiant, carrying a future he had no share in, to a garden conversation under roses where apologies were spoken, truths laid bare, and two people finally released what they had been gripping too tightly, to quiet coffees, gentle friendships, a newborn's first smile, and a bench beside the East River where forgiveness settled like autumn light. This is not a fairy tale. It is a redemption story. Not the kind where everything snaps back into a perfect happy ending. Not the kind where love conquers all in a dramatic reunion. It is the rarer, harder, more honest kind. The redemption of a man who finally chose growth over pride. The redemption of a woman who turned heartbreak into strength and built a life rich with meaning. The redemption of a love that didn't die. It changed shape, softened into friendship, deepened into wisdom, and left both people better for having known it. Blake Weston once believed success was the ultimate measure of a life well lived. He learned it was the emptiest measure when measured alone. Elowen once waited for someone to show up fully. She learned she could show up for herself, and for the daughter who now calls her home, and that was more than enough. Together they proved something powerful. Broken hearts don't have to stay broken. They can mend into something stronger, kinder, wiser. They can become doorways instead of walls. Now let's speak the lessons plainly. The 5 truths this story carved into stone so we never have to learn them the hard way again. Moral 1. Presence matters more than provision. Blake gave Elowen gifts, trips, and promises of a grand future. What she needed was his time, his attention, his undivided self in the small, ordinary moments. When he traded evenings on the velvet couch for boardrooms and red eyes, the foundation cracked. Lesson: no amount of money or status can substitute for simply showing up, consistently, fully, without checking the clock. The people who love you remember the nights you stayed more than the things you bought. Moral 2. Ambition needs balance, or it consumes everything worth having. Weston Renewables became Blake's identity. Every win felt necessary, every missed dinner felt justified. Until the empire stood tall and the man inside it stood alone. Lesson: drive is a gift, until it becomes a thief. Guard your relationships as fiercely as you guard your goals. Success without the people who make life meaningful is just noise. Moral 3. Manipulation breeds regret. Genuine connection respects free will. Blake thought one clever donation and a conditional invitation would give him control over closure. Instead, it forced Elowen into his orbit and forced him to confront his own cowardice. Lesson: you cannot manufacture healing. You cannot buy forgiveness. You cannot force someone to give you peace. The only path to real resolution is honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to let the other person choose, yes or no, without strings. Moral 4. Heartbreak fuels growth when you let it. Elowen could have let bitterness close her shop and close her heart. Instead, she poured the pain into community, into stories, into motherhood. She emerged not smaller, but larger, rooted, purposeful, joyful. Lesson: pain is fertilizer if you use it right. Let heartbreak teach you resilience. Let loss show you what you're truly capable of building on your own. Moral 5. Love adapts. It doesn't always end in romance. It can end in mutual respect, quiet support, and enduring wisdom. Blake and Elowen didn't reunite in passion. They reunited in maturity. They became friends who celebrate each other's victories, who share space without possession, who honor the past without being trapped by it. Lesson: love is not a single shape. Sometimes it becomes the steady hand on a child's carrier during a river walk. Sometimes it becomes the coffee brought without asking for anything in return. Sometimes it becomes the courage to say, "I'm glad you're happy," and mean it with your whole chest. Real love evolves. And when it does, it leaves no wreckage, only grace. Dear viewer, if you've stayed with us through every tear, every regret, every quiet moment of hope, thank you. This story isn't just about Blake and Elowen. It's about every one of us who has ever chosen wrong, loved deeply, lost painfully, and still woke up the next day determined to do better. Every ending plants seeds. Every goodbye clears space for something new, maybe not what you expected, but often what you needed. So nurture your connections. Show up before it's too late. Say the apology before pride locks it away. Choose presence over power. Let love change forms if it must. Because at the end of every long day, the real fortune isn't in bank accounts or headlines. It's in the people who still choose to sit beside you, even after everything. Even after goodbye. Even after the storm has passed and the sun finds you both on different paths, smiling anyway. If this story touched you, if it made you pause, reflect, reach for your phone to text someone you've been meaning to call, do this for me right now. Like this video so the algorithm knows hearts are being moved. Share it with a friend who needs the reminder that it's never too late to choose better. Drop a comment below and tell me which of the 5 morals hit you hardest today. I read every single one. And if you want more stories that don't just entertain but actually heal something inside you, hit subscribe to Lord of Hearts. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next tale that might just change the way you love, forgive, or show up in your own life. Thank you for spending this time with us. Your heart matters. Your story matters. And there's always another chapter waiting to be written. See you in the next one.